Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, once again on this short little interview to talk about all things AI and project management. I'm really excited today to speak to Marcus, our latest guest, a world-renowned person in this area. Marcus, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Marcus, would you like to just introduce yourself and your background to our viewers, as it were?
Sure. Yeah, Marcus Glowasz. I'm originally from Germany, but I'm based in Switzerland. So in terms of my background, I mean, after all, I'm a project manager. That's my background. I've worked for many years in large organizations, in banks, mainly in the financial services area currently. So, and yeah, have run large-scale projects. So I learned a lot, especially also in terms of data management, because usually the areas that I worked in, they were quite data-driven. To some extent, also already touching on AI practices, etc. And then, yeah, I took this all with me, and then emerged kind of into this whole area of data analytics, AI. And yeah, today I even don't know exactly what I would call myself. If you look on my LinkedIn profile, you see something like data coach or transformation strategist. But I see myself kind of in that intersection between project management, the typical project management activities. And on the other hand, we have these more advanced data topics. And I think there's still some gap in the middle. And that's where I think I fit in based on my experience in projects myself and the challenges I had with data-driven practices and leveraging AI. And yeah, I work with organizations, with project teams, primarily, to fill that gap. So this is how I would describe myself.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Marcus. And yeah, just reinforce, do jump on Marcus's website. Marcus, what's your website URL?
Yeah, that's simple. It's my name. So marcusglowasz.com. So I know my last name is not as straightforward as some other names, but if you look me up on LinkedIn, then you find also the link to my website.
And fantastic, Marcus. And there was one thing that I know that you missed out of there, which is that you're also an author. And just tell us the name of your book as well.
Yeah, my book is called Leading Projects with Data. So this is basically all what I've learned in that space, what I kind of outlined in terms of my profile. I've put it down into a book format. And I'm currently actually working on my second book, so a continuation of this, where I go more into the in-depths or in the more into the details of how to leverage data and eventually also how that leads to AI practices. But in my book, it's more about how to overcome the biggest challenges, more like the behavioral challenges. So it's not a technical book. It's more like to make that transition, to make it work, to get actually a good start. And that usually starts with data culture and behavioral aspects. And that's what you can find in my book.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure some of those subjects are going to come up a little bit more as we speak. Before we dive into the hows and the wherefores and what to do, as it were, let's just take a step back. And it's a question I ask everybody, which is in terms of the use cases for AI in project management. What do you view or envisage that the big use cases for AI in PM are?
I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say biased, but I kind of, as I mentioned earlier, I have some background in more data-driven projects. I mean, to be more precise, I worked in areas of financial crime compliance, anti-money laundering, this kind of things, where obviously it's very data-driven, very data-centric. And at some point, AI came into the picture to actually take that forward, or to basically to improve the decision making. That's all what it comes down to, right? To actually make better decisions. And so those use cases in those areas where that applied, I've kind of, yeah, that's kind of in my head, and I mapped this kind of to the project management area, and how I eventually then see that how we can benefit from AI in project management. So it's I mean, at a broader term, it's really to make better decisions. That's
Yeah.
all it is,
I
right?
I I
And that
love
links
that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and
Sorry,
that links
Marcus. Yeah.
to actually risk management. So actually, when we assess risks, right, that's a decision to be taken. Even identifying risk, is that a risk? Is that a relevant risk? Uh, yeah, what is the probability behind this, right? This is all where we can leverage AI, because, as we all know, we are typically very biased and are usually wrong in our judgments, which is very human, right? But risk management, I think, is a very important area of project management where AI, or where we can benefit a lot from AI. Another thing is the whole project planning area, right? Which is usually, I mean, whoever runs a project, when you put together a project plan or schedule, then you deal with estimates. You have to actually um, yeah, basically do a work breakdown structure, right? And understand what's all involved in terms of tasks, and then estimate those tasks, right? And that's where we usually fail a lot. Again, it's a very human thing, but we are constantly wrong with our estimates, right? So if we actually leverage data analytics AI to help us with this, by giving us insights now based on past projects, and then bring in also some statistical models to account obviously for uncertainties that we usually have, right? Then we can usually benefit from this. And I think those are the most important use cases. Of course, there are many others, especially right now with generative AI. There's a lot that we can use it for to be very efficient. Like, I mean, these more smaller, mundane tasks, right? Like transcribing meetings or summarizing documents, right? Or lessons learned, right? To leverage this, or to summarize this and take actions out of this, right? This is all very useful. And then obviously also as to give us ideas in terms of, for example, I have right now, yeah, just as an example, right? I mean, I see myself, I had in the past, I had a project where I had to run an RFP, request for proposal, right? So to source a standard application from the market. Back then, it was completely new to me. This was how to actually structure this, right? What is actually involved? What are the different elements, right? This is something which is I mean, who is experienced with this? It's a well-defined structure, right? It's very solid usually. So you can actually ask like generative AI or ChatGPT, for example, tools like this to give some ideas. How can I structure this, right? And then it will give you a lot of feedback, obviously, how usually that's done, right? Or how that project would look like. Obviously, we know we should not just take this one-to-one, but it gives us ideas, right?
Yeah.
So as an idea giver, I think Gen AI, among other things, obviously, that I described, right? It's a great tool, right? But I would differentiate this, right? There's one thing which is more like efficiency, and the other one is more like, predictive, taking this forward to a
Yeah.
more advanced model.
If I may, Marcus, I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning of what you said there, in terms of your experience in banking and in security and fraud, because they are much more mature uses of AI in project management. And I was wanting to get at how, in AI in project management, we're still in a sort of nascent stage of how you apply AI. And I was wondering whether you had any reflections of what you've seen, how the market is evolved from those days when you were working in banking, and whether you could sort of apply some of that more maturity into the project management sphere in terms of, maybe a little bit crystal ball gazing of where you think we're going, as it were.
Yeah. I mean, to be frank, I mean, I think that in project management, we are very late to the whole AI game.
Yeah.
And I have experienced this myself because, as you know, I have been involved myself in an AI startup, and that was in 2017, 2018, right? When I actually really explored or started exploring AI for project management. And before that, I worked already with advanced analytics and data management topics, etc., data quality initiatives in the banking area, right? In the project that I managed. And in project management, we haven't seen AI for, I mean, nobody really, it feels kind of, for years, everyone say, oh, that sounds great, but nothing really happened. And only with the emergence of ChatGPT, we start thinking about this, right? But I mean, to answer your question, I mean, it's nothing that happens from one day to another, right? Where, okay, we get an AI tool off the shelf, and then we get magically all the great insights, and our projects will be all successful. That's not going to happen, right? And similarly, in the areas that I worked in, right? I mean, it's a process, right? We have to obviously start working on data, right? And that's what I eventually realized, right? That data is key, right? And that's why I actually chose that path that I'm taking or where I'm right now, to really deep dive into this whole data topics, right? So you have to really make sure that your project data is accurate, it's complete, it's transparent, it shows exactly what we're doing in projects, and then the technology on top of it, AI, is actually, I mean, we all know that this kind of the fuel, it's like the basics, right? You need the proper data, right, to actually get the proper insights out. So it's kind of garbage in, garbage out if you don't take care of your data, right? So this is kind of, I mean, in terms of to map this to the project management space. And I'm not sure if that actually answers fully your question, but
yeah.
Sorry.
I was thinking, in fraud detection.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. For example, I think, in my mind, maybe I'm wrong, Marcus, but there are parallels there.
Okay, right.
In terms of, as I understand it, fraud detection is an extremely accurate pastime these days. But it's gone through that curve, as you explained there, about the data and the data maturity and the consistency and the access to the data. But now I understand that financial organizations can track extremely accurately those people that are more likely to undertake fraud. And I guess I was getting at, is that where we think we're going around projects? Those projects that are more or less likely to succeed as you go through that data maturity. Would you concur with that?
Absolutely. And I mean, just to give you a glimpse, right? I mean, I know in at least those large banks that I used to work in, I believe 60% of overall project budget across the entire organization went to compliance areas. Because if you don't invest there and really are on top of the latest technology, right, then your wall controls will fail. And that means it can cost a lot of huge fines, right? And we read sometimes about this in news, right, where any organization or financial institution failed with the controls and they got huge fines, right? So there's a lot of emphasis on high data maturity, data quality, right? And it's constantly being reviewed to make sure that we have the right we make the right decisions, right?
Yeah.
Because you're matching kind of, okay, here we have data, like client data, account data, etc., right? And then you match that up with all kinds of lists, right? Like blacklists, right? And then also in terms of activities or patterns, right? That you see, like in fraud, for example, right? I mean, it would feel a little bit strange if you use your credit card, for example, right now in the UK, and a couple of hours later, the same card is being used in, let's say, Australia, right? I mean, it's obviously a very, very simple example, but these are kind of things that got you catch this. But then obviously there are way more complex scenarios where you need to kind of find the patterns, right? How criminals work and how fraudulent activities are happening, and then detecting this. You need advanced technology because humanly it's simply not possible anymore, right? To do that. And if we look at banks, right, we have tons of data and activities and transactions per day. So you need technology to help you with, right? And then obviously it's a combination of things. You use technology to get some, to make some decisions to a certain degree, but then scenarios can become way more complex that you need the human insight, human eye, right? And that's what we can definitely use or should use in project management. But then we have to invest also in the data maturity and really that right now I think like we are all focused on AI, but forget kind of this step in between where the data needs to be highly accurate. And not only this, and I'm not talking only data quality, like, that your format is right, that your data is available, that your project data is readable and, I don't know, in structured format and etc. But that actually it's complete and it's transparent. It shows exactly, or it says exactly what's happening in projects. I mean, we know that we are not all that honest in projects sometimes, right? With our contingency reserves, and then we negotiate, etc. And red, amber, green is a completely different topic, right? Which is also very vague, right? And kind of a play field to really stretch everything to something that's not really realistic anymore, not reflecting the reality. So there needs to be some mindset in place that not only values data in mind, that we use it actually for AI in the end and want to use it to give us insight. So we would actually, if we don't taking care of the data properly, then we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, right? Because what we're getting back from AI will not be really that insightful that it really makes a good impact that we can really say, okay, we definitely advanced our project management practice.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting the point you're making there. And again, I'm just going to go back to what you said earlier in the conversation, which was it's still early. Project management hasn't really adopted AI. And then I was thinking about, back to the fraud example, where it's really adopted AI, if you like. And I was wondering why you thought that project management hadn't become the same in terms of that adoption scale and rate around AI in project management. I mean, I certainly have a view, but I'd be intrigued to hear what your view is, Marcus.
I mean, it's on there's different elements, I would say, right? One thing is definitely it's a leadership thing, right? Where it needs to be, I wouldn't say enforced, right? But it needs to be definitely initiated, right? This path to take, and not only for reasons, because otherwise now like in the fraud example, like if we don't have the proper controls, then we have huge fines. But actually, because we want to actually mature in our project management practices, and then I don't think that I mean, we all knew about the existence of AI, analytics, etc., and what it can do, and how powerful that is, and also in project management, right? I mean, that's also how I came to it, starting there in 2017, approximately, to actually explore this further, because I've seen the benefit, and I think many others have done that as well, right? But and I know this myself, right? In organizations where everything is becoming faster, more complex, right? Everything needs to get delivered much faster. We don't really have time to really explore things and work on data maturity, etc., which probably takes a few some time depending on where an organization is, right, with their project data. And it can take some time, right? And that's something that first leaders, they don't want to invest in, because they want usually buy something or initiate something, and in 3 months latest, we have to have the first results present, right? Here, right? And then in 6 months, latest 12 months, you should have that's really I mean, fully rolled out, right? And fully working. That's how it works, right? In large corporates, at least, right? Where I used to work in, because nobody wants to actually have like some timeline over like 2-3 years, etc. First, we need to get our data in place, and then technology rollout, adoption, change management is this whole thing. It takes too long, right? And then we need to deliver project at the same time. So it's kind of yeah, we want to innovate, but we're kind of let's park this for next year, right? And then it rolls over, right? Only when ChatGPT comes in, right? Of course, this is like some quick win, right? Because you just open the tool and you put the prompt together, and there you go, right? There you have something. This is obviously fantastic, and you get kind of immediate results, and then taking this a little bit, yeah, further and integrate this into your own infrastructure there, it doesn't take much, right, to do this, right? But I think there will be a point where it will become obvious that yes, it's useful. There are many tools that we can use and implement, right? But there's more to be done, right, to make that really useful and effective. And that's that point, I think, because we're still in a hype, right? In this hype mode, and that point will come, I believe, where we take a step back. Okay, all great, but that's not all. I mean, there's more that we expected, and we still need to do some work there, right?
I definitely concur with everything you said, Marcus. You said it much more articulately than I could. I think it sort of goes back to projects are sort of like a human tasks. Yeah, they're still controlled by us as humans, and we're quite happy with the status quo. And your point there of when do we start thinking about doing the right things in the first place, rather than doing the current things as quickly as is possible, and balancing off leaders that aren't just thinking about today, but building the capability for tomorrow, I think. And, I can imagine that's a challenge. Like you said, one takes longer to get to, and the desire, whether it's that leader as an individual or the board or somebody around them that's driving them to accelerate. So I think it's a really, really salient point you're making there about getting that. Now, I think I do have to come back to the point you were saying that you do believe it will happen. And without putting you on the spot, I think we will start falling off a we're bored of AI cliff. I'm sure some people are starting to write that already. But when do you think that moment will come when it will be more reflective about, are we doing the right things in the first place? Which is, some could argue it's as equally as important as doing things faster, quicker, and all of that sort of stuff. Do you see that there's going to be a moment in time, and how close is that?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, but I think definitely I think it will happen soon, which means I think still later this year at the latest, right? Probably even earlier, right? The next month or so. Uh, we'll realize, okay, this is all great stuff, right? And we see this. I mean, if you follow, right, we hear this already in some places where people are saying, okay, what about the data and data literacy? We talk about this, right? This term data literacy, last year, that was kind of what is this, right? I mean, I have been to presentations or conferences where I discussed about data literacy, and it was kind of never heard about this, right? Right now, that's at least a term that has been heard, and we take it further, right? And other things like data maturity, data management, these topics, right, which are usually in the project management space, not really well known, let's say, right? They appear right now, right? And I mean, of course, there's first some resistance as everywhere, right? First everybody, when we started talking about AI and project management, go away, right? Because now this is all what I heard back then, right? That was years ago, right? People said, no, this is all a human-led practice.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, of course, right? But nowadays, now everybody is using ChatGPT, right? And the same with data. That takes a lot of effort, etc. And we want the quick wins, etc. And right now, we are starting to realize that okay, we have to put some effort in there, right? I mean, and there will be benefits, obviously, and that's what it will drive. If you don't mind, I mean, I actually it struck me these days, right? Just to give some little analogy, because there's the Euro, the football championships here in Europe,
course,
right? Which I'm watching closely, and you know that there's a referee, right? And whenever there's some situation which is unclear, right? Because we cannot really capture this properly, right? If a ball is just crossed the line, or if there's a foul, or it's offside, etc., then we have that video assistant, right? And you recall maybe, when that got introduced years back, there was a huge resistance, right? Like, oh no, this is just stopping the whole flow here, etc. Right now, you cannot even be without it because we see the benefits, right? If we would have had that back in 1966 it was, right?
Careful, Marcus, careful. I mean, it's a really interesting example, and certainly in the UK there is still a lot of debate about what comes out of that decision making. But I think it's, for me, the bigger point you're making there is really interesting in terms of not just football, but other sports, certainly Formula One, which are so data driven. And then we're seeing, our examples earlier with finance and everything. Again, just to echo what you said earlier, it feels like project management's been on the catch-up step, but it feels like it's coming as well. And the likes of you, the likes of myself, and even the bigger professional bodies, we know that PMI, APM, etc., are talking about AI and project management. And I used to always talk about recognition is the first step to resolution, if you like, and I think it's going to be like that. So I am optimistic that more and more companies are waking up to this and the benefits it comes. Now, we've been chatting for some time, and I wouldn't mind just circling back, because it's been a fascinating conversation. I know we could talk for longer, but if there was one bit of sort of takeaway that you'd like people to think about out of this conversation, would you mind just summarizing what that would be?
Yeah, I think you can guess it. I mean, that AI certainly, I mean, is what everybody wants to get to, right? But there are obviously several steps to be taken, right? And my focus obviously is data literacy, which is very closely linked to AI literacy. We cannot forget this, right? So data is not like here's data literacy and here's AI stuff, right? It's closely linked. It goes hand in hand, right? And what people often kind of miss, I think, is now when we talk being data literate, they think it's like a completely new skill, right? Oh, we have to learn to be data literate. But I mean, if you think about this, we are all data literate. We all are, right? I mean, if you go out with your car, you sit at the traffic light, you're actually data literate because you're actually interpreting the traffic light, right? In project management, we use all kinds of data points, right? We use earned value analysis. We use, I mean, even the more non-digital data points, like we observe people and then make decisions, based on, for resource management, whatever, right? And we observe our environments and take decisions. But then obviously we also use a lot of data in project management. What changed is really we have right now much more advanced capabilities, right? Also with AI, which also means we have to adjust our data literacy level. So we have to lift it, right? So we have to invest there to really bring it all in line again, right? So that we have that level of understanding to engage with data and work with data and with AI to make sure that we understand what AI requires in terms of data and where we shouldn't even use AI, but actually our common sense, right? These are all things that are part of data literacy, right? And in this AI-driven world, we need to actually bring it all back in line. So takeaway, ChatGPT, AI, all great, right? We should not really, I'm not saying that we should stop doing this. It's great, actually, especially also with this interaction. It teaches us a lot of things about how to ask good questions and stuff like this. But, if you want a really good output from AI, don't forget the data element, and that's where data literacy comes in.
Fantastic, Marcus. That's been brilliant, and thank you so much for your time. And also, we swarmed around a couple of subjects there, and the interpretation of one sector to another. But and I know, like we said at the beginning of the conversation, we knew that you were going to focus on data, but actually, I think you also brought out some of the human elements. So thank you so much for your time, Marcus.
Thank you, Lloyd.